I want to thank you for the invitation to be here, and it's my honor to attend this seminar. Where's that? Okay. I will discuss the idea of expecting the unexpected, new ways to think about safety culture, and I will review some investigations I have participated in. I will not have time to talk about Fukushima or San Bruno. When I use the term safety culture, I mean application of social science to understanding and preventing workplace accidents. First, I will start with a message from a very insightful manager. The manager says to the employee, "My job is to create an environment where employees feel safe taking risk. My other job is punishing employees who make any kind of mistake. My point," the manager says, "is that I'm glad I don't have your job," to the employee. Okay. This is a picture of the beautiful National Cathedral in Washington, D.C., near my home. It is one of the top landmarks in the city. A few years ago, they were preparing for a ceremony that would feature President Obama, and preparation included some repairs. But one guest experienced a problem at the front door of the cathedral. A 500-ton crane was brought in to help with repairs. It had a problem. You may wonder where the other portion of the crane is located. It was only luck that no one was injured. Who would imagine arriving at the famous cathedral that you would see this situation? My point in showing you this is in the next slide. Oh. Things that have not happened before happen all the time. One important aspect of accident prevention is managing the unexpected. The Chemical Safety Board is an independent U.S. government agency that has operated since 1998. It is not involved in enforcement. It makes no penalties and does not find blame. It makes recommendations for prevention. It's a very small agency. only 18 investigators. And we do incident investigations, and also we study safety problems like dust explosions and reactive chemical problems. It was the evening and all the workers had left the facility. There was a small fire, and the voluntary firefighters arrived and spent 30 minutes trying to stop the fire, when suddenly there was a powerful explosion. 15 responders were killed and 160 people were injured. Many homes and schools were destroyed. I think 150 buildings. This is an apartment building that I spent many hours going through the debris looking for evidence. One woman from this event was in surgery for 22 hours. She received more than 1,000 stitches. This is where the facility was located. It was destroyed. You can see there's a railroad track right next to the facility, but fortunately there was no train. Now, this was a huge explosion. However, the material involved in the explosion, ammonium nitrate, was not listed as a highly hazardous material by the regulations. It is important to know that in the United States, there are 1,000 facilities similar to this one. Near the facility that exploded, there were 3 schools and a nursing home. All 3 schools were very damaged and had to be demolished. The schools could not be used again. It was just luck. If the explosion had happened during the day when school was in session, there could have been hundreds of children killed. I show you this because there are some culture problems in this incident. First, in the United States, we have a culture to put no restrictions on where you can build a home or any other building. All these homes and buildings were constructed long after the hazardous facility was in operation. This was perfectly legal. We also have a culture where facilities like this one are not considered hazardous, are not covered by the high hazard regulations, and they receive no inspection, no safety inspections. This is all considered normal in our culture. I'm not going to. This is not This, I apologize, this device that doesn't work. Okay, in April 2010, there was a fire on the Deepwater Horizon oil drilling rig in the Gulf of Mexico. This caused the deaths of 11 workers, and the $500 million oil rig sank. A huge amount of oil was released for nearly 3 months. I have been investigating this incident for 4 years as part of the CSB investigation team. Okay. Well, at the time of this terrible event, the safety regulator had a mission statement. The mission statement said their purpose is to maximize the collection of royalties on the production of the oil. This meant the mission of the safety regulator was to maximize production. This improper situation had existed for 30 years. Okay. You know, I've done investigations of BP at Texas City and also Deepwater Horizon. And BP, in this incident, made many fundamental mistakes. But there is much more to the story. For example, the drilling rig was owned and operated by a company, Transocean. Transocean is the largest drilling company in the world. They drill for all the major oil companies. Halliburton is the largest cementer, cement company operating in the offshore sector in the world. And they were involved in this incident, as was Transocean, of course. And Cameron, it was their blowout preventer device that did not work. And Cameron is the largest manufacturer of blowout preventers in the world. So, you know, we have, so you can see that all these companies are working together all the time to do oil drilling offshore. And this accident could have happened to another oil company, ExxonMobil, Shell, or others. Blaming BP is an oversimplification. Okay. Well, this was an accident 30 years in the making. For 30 years, they had drilled in the Gulf of Mexico without a major blowout, a major release of oil. This history acted to downplay the risk of a catastrophic spill. And the the failure, the possible failure of the blowout preventer device was considered so unlikely that they began to think informally that the failure of the blowout preventer was impossible. But it did fail in this incident. And because they thought drilling was so, that the risk was so low and that the blowout preventer would work, preparations for emergency planning were not taken seriously by the industry or the regulator. For example, the oil spill response plans had to be submitted to the government and approved. But these plans included, and this is for all the oil companies, not just BP, the plans listed long retired or long dead persons as emergency contacts, and discussed the protection of walruses in the Gulf of Mexico. But there are no walruses in the Gulf of Mexico. That's because the plans had been photocopied from Alaska. So, what does this tell us? It tells us, and this was for all the oil companies, the same problem. So this tells us that the plans submitted by the companies, no one in the company read the plan that they submitted. But they checked the box that they had completed the task. The safety regulator received the plans, and they did not read the plans, but they checked the box that the task was completed. So what does this tell us? It tells us that both the oil industry and the safety regulator did not think a spill was likely, and therefore preparation was not important. "30 years of operation without a major spill created a culture that forgot to be afraid." So my message is, risk assessments that rely on probability do not offer protection from incidents that rarely happen or have not happened before. Okay. This is the BP Texas City oil refinery. In March of 2005, there were fires and explosions that killed 15 people and injured 180. I led the CSP investigation of this tragedy. When this happened, the CSP was not prepared to do an investigation of this magnitude. We recognized that only examining technical factors would be inadequate, that we needed to also look at the organization. So we turned to a book from Australia to frame our approach. The book is called Lessons from Longford, written by sociologist Andrew Hopkins, an Australian professor. This book, for anyone working at the CSB, this is the first book they must read. This is about a gas plant fire that killed 2 workers, a Esso gas plant. And it stopped the supply of gas for fuel to a big part of the country for 2 weeks, which caused major economic damage. So, in line with this, the CSB, in order to do the investigation, we did not have any socio-technical experts in our organization. This was a new idea. So we hired experts on socio-technical safety from France, from United Kingdom, and from Australia to help us and to teach us. Okay. This is the area of the explosion at Texas City. There were about 6 or 7 trailers in this area. Several were office trailers. This is where 15 people died. But use of trailers, office trailers, in oil refineries was the practice in all refineries in the country. And they did conduct a risk assessment of placing the trailers, but the method they used for the whole country for many years, the method was faulty, was an improper method. So the result of the analysis was always the same. It meant that you could put any trailer in any location, anytime. These so-called temporary trailers had been there perhaps 6 months. It would be normal. It became normal to use the trailers. A culture of making it normal to use trailers in a highly hazardous operation. So the question is, and all the companies, all the oil companies were doing this the same way. So why? Why would smart people, why would smart technical people use a risk tool if the answer is always the same? It is obvious that tool is providing no value. But they checked the box that they had done their job. But they didn't deliver safety. This is you could call it a check the box culture. I'm not going to do that. Okay, now I want to turn to a topic of new ways to think about safety culture, to think about organizational factors. Safety culture is usually examined at a single facility or within a single company. My most important message today is that CSB investigations reveal that safety culture should also be studied and investigated at the level of an entire industry, as well as at the level of the safety regulators. They also have a culture, and it's just as important to investigate that. Let me give an example. Okay, in the Deepwater Horizon oil spill, the regulators, the industry, and the media all focused on BP, that BP is the problem. Punish BP. But as I have already said, there were many large companies involved, all which shared responsibility and involvement for the incident. And none of these companies were prepared. So just examination of only BP misses a big part of what's important for understanding what caused this and for prevention. Okay. So everyone said BP is a renegade company. They're the problem. No one else has any problems. But I will tell you, assigning blame for major incidents to one person or to one company is an act of extreme oversimplification. And it detracts from learning and prevention. The underlying causes of Texas City and Deepwater Horizon involve systemic, technical, and cultural failures at every level of the company, the energy industry, and the government. Okay. So, what are some more examples of this? I think it's important to see the industry and the government forgot to be afraid. It is, looking backwards, it is obvious that you can have, in oil drilling offshore, you can have a major spill, a major blowout. It's obvious. But the culture became complacent. Success was breeding complacency. And complacency is a cultural cause of accidents. And they forgot to remember an important point, that the lack of serious incidents should not be seen as proof that systems are safe, especially when it involves potential for low frequency, high consequence events. Okay, so in conclusion, it is my belief that thinking about the ideas that I've presented here will help you prevent individual worker injuries as well as tragedies like the one shown in this slide. Thank you.